How's it going, guys, and welcome to Volkmar's second Crusade. In this game, we're going to be taking the Crusade to the foul Skaven hordes. So let's jump right into this match, guys, and purge some of these filthy heretics. So over here on the far side, we do have two groups of the Knights of the Blazing Sun. And all jokes aside, I actually think they're a pretty good pick against a Skaven. They do have 100 armor, which is going to make them pretty resilient against Skaven infantry, and even the Clan Rat Spears, who do have an anti-large bonus, don't really have good armor-piercing values. So these guys should be relatively durable. On top of that, they do have flame attacks, which is my favorite synergy, and it's definitely very thematic of the Crusade. So over here, if we look at the Bright Wizard, he actually did receive some changes in the Mortal Empires patch. So if we look at Kindle Flame, which is the ability that the flame attack synergize with, whenever he casts any ability, so that can be the Cascading Fire Cloak, Flaming Sword of Ruin, or pretty much any other fire spell you bring, he's then going to make all opponents on the entire map have a temporary weakness to fire of 22%. So the old Kindle Flame used to kind of apply a static effect that was, I think, like 12 or 13% just throughout the whole game. So it wasn't conditional upon your casting, but now this is a higher percentage, but it's only while you're casting. So I think if you time it really well, it can definitely be pretty effective. Like you can cast, if your Knights of the Blazing Sun are about to charge in, you can go ahead and cast a Cascading Fire Cloak just on some Flagellants, for example. And then you're going to get this huge buff to these guys' damage of 22% when you're just kind of charging into some of these filthy Skaven. It's definitely quite a bit of fun. We do also have a Warrior Priest over here, and he's also gotten a few changes and new items. So if we look here, he has the Banner of the Eternal Flame. So this is another item that does synergize pretty well with the Right Wizard, not as well with the Knights of the Blazing Sun since they already have fire damage. But if you have them in the front line with the Banner of the Eternal Flame, it will imbue fire damage to your Flagellants, who will then get the benefit from the Kindle Flame. But for the sake of thematics, I wanted him to be riding with the Knights of the Blazing Sun and just, going on that hard crusade over here. So in the front line, I do have a bunch of shirtless religious fanatics who, even a thematics aside, are probably not a terrible pick against Skaven. The Empire doesn't really have the best infantry in the world, but what they really have is, things like Volkmar on his chariot and, good powder units. They have free company militia, pretty heavy cav. But these Flagellants will hold their own and trade relatively efficiently with the Plague Monks. So the Plague Monks do have that physical resist, and I think their stats are a little bit better across the board. Flagellants have similar melee attack, and I think, so these guys have 40 weapon strength. Granted, they have 2 chevrons. I don't know if that applies to weapon strength. And it looks like the Plague Monks have 35, but a true bonus versus infantry. They have better melee defense, and let's see, these guys have 0 armor, and the Plague Monks have 15. So I think Plague Monks would win 1-1, but they do cost a little bit more. I do also have the Tattersalls, and this is one of my favorite units in this matchup as well, are the Free Company Militia. So they have missile attacks, which don't have the best AP values, but if you're fighting against Rat Ogres or, lightly armored large targets, they'll be pretty helpful in that respect. And they do have good enough melee stats to kind of stand and hang with most Skaven infantry, so I definitely like those guys quite a bit. One group here, and then I think I have another group of Free Company over here, the Regiment of Renown in the back of the Handgunners and the Silver Bullets, and you definitely need some anti-large because sometimes Skaven will slip in like, Hell Pit Abomination, they'll bring some Rat Ogres, which are pretty good against Empire Cav, or any number of large targets. Like this will be pretty good against the Seer atop his Doombell as well. In the back, I got some spears. Volkmar the Grim atop his Pimp Wagon right here. He's definitely ready to party, and he does have Banishment, which just does so much damage. So really excited to see that in action. So for my opponent, he does have a couple groups of Night Runners with the skirmishing capabilities. They do not have poison, which is definitely nice for me. Looks like this one group of Gutter Runners actually does. In the front, he has a bunch of Plague Monks, which I really like in this matchup. They're going to do pretty well against Flagellants, Swordsmen, Spearmen, Halberds. They will get crushed by Greatswords. And if I were actually playing against this Skaven, like in a really serious and I wasn't doing like a thematic build, I would really like to bring like 2 or 3 groups of Greatswords and then mix them in with some Flagellants, because Greatswords just crush Skaven infantry so darn hard with their 90 armor. So I like the Greatswords in the front line, but for him, he's got Plague Monks, he's got a Grey Seer with Lore of Ruin, he has the Howling Warp Gale, the Warp Storm Scroll, which slows flying units, but thankfully I did bring Volkmar on his Pimp Wagon, so these 2 abilities aren't really going to be pertinent. The dreaded 13th spell, which does a ton of damage, the Unholy Clamor, and it looks like he does have Scorch. He's got some more Clan Rats, he does have some heavy artillery, he's got the Warp Lightning Cannons over here, 2 of them, which are really good. Those things are excellent at taking out Empire Cav, so I definitely need to, get over here and crusade on these guys' face. So guys, without further ado, let's get this show on the road. So the Knights of the Blazing Sun are going to be coming up and over the hill right here, and just trying to find an angle right now, but then at this point, I did realize that he had the Warp Lightning Cannon. As I come over the hill, I did get visibility on his army. So those cannons are definitely going to be a little bit scary, so what I end up doing is kind of panning off into the forest right here with one group, and you can see my opponent does actually have the Doom Wheel. So the Doom Wheel is definitely going to be really easy for me to kill with these Knights of the Blazing Sun, but they only have 71 speed, and I think the Doom Wheel is 72, so it's actually a little bit faster than the Knights of the Blazing Sun, which is pretty crazy. So I do peel off into the forest right now, just take some cover while my army advances, and you can see my shirtless fanatics with Volkmar the Grim at their head, and man, that is a cool looking sight right there, with like the sunset in the background, and some of these maps look so good. Creative Assembly did an awesome job with that. So his troops are a little bit bunched here, so I do drop a banishment, so you can see the rats are just getting sucked up into this vortex. And man, that did some huge damage to those Night Runners, even though it wasn't there that long. Also did some okay work against these Plague Monks here. You can see my Free Company Militia on the high ground are going to be shooting at these Plague Monks and picking off a few of them. And now it is time for the slow motion charge. So you can see, I guess they're like both the religious fanatics of their respective ideology. So the Flagellants are going to be coming in for Sigmar, and these guys for whatever they believe in. I guess it would be the Horned Rat. Definitely going to be a good time for all. So you can see Volkmar coming through on his Pimp Wagon, taking some of that lightning, but Volkmar cares not. He does have the Jade Griffin, so he has pretty good healing. Oh man, it's so great to see him just riding through these filthy rats. On the far side, the Knights of the Blazing Sun are coming out of their hiding. I was a little bit kind of slow on that, and you can see the Doom Wheel is going to punish me for that, so it's just going to come ramrodding right through these Free Company Militia, who are relatively durable for their cost. They're going to turn and take some pot shots at this thing, which is pretty cool to see him doing that point blank. But the Knights of the Blazing Sun, the Crusade is coming forth, going to put an end to this wretched menace. Over here you can see that my Silver Bolts are kind of taking some pot shots at the Doom Wheel. I do have some auxiliary spears, but the Crusaders are going to deal with it no problem. So you can see these Knights of the Blazing Sun going to chase down that Doom Wheel, and in the back, this is where this is Gotham's Reckoning, guys. It's like when I'm Gotham's Reckoning. So coming in here right now, they're just going to get an epic charge, and you can see the burning skull at the same time. I don't think it gets more heavy metal than that, guys. Seeing a giant burning skull with a bunch of cav just charging in, just all angry. That's so cool. Oh man, what a cinematic right there. So a little bit laggy from everything going on, but you guys can see the entire Skaven line just absolutely buckles. The Plague Monks get terrified and just run down. Volkmar the Grim on his chariot is just getting hog wild in here. And the Knights of the Blazing Sun probably just got those 17 kills like initially, like right away. In the back, you can see the Doom Wheel is kind of blocked up by the Knights of the Blazing Sun. And the Doom Wheel kind of does play like a chariot. So if you have any cav or any mass, you can hard counter it pretty easily. So the Knights of the Blazing Sun will chase that off. In the main line, the Skaven Infantry Corps is doing pretty well against my infantry. My Flagellants have been massacred. Thankfully, I do have some Greatswords over here who are just cutting these rats to pieces. And it looks like these were summoned, I think, are these the Storm Vermin? Maybe from the Dreaded 13th spell? I think it was. Maybe that's how he killed my line. He does a ton of damage. So in the backs of my Flagellants have charged back here. You can see they're pretty brave, but they are having to fight this Grey Seer atop the bell, and he's just kind of running them over. Just look at him just on top of his bell, all happy. But the Warrior Priest is going to be coming down. The Crusade has had enough of these foul Skaven. Definitely going to send him back to the Shadow Realm, but the Warrior Priest is going to be leading the charge. Definitely going to be some good stuff. So he does have some Plague Monks and other troops hanging back here, but yeah, I wonder if the Grey Seer is weak to fire. I don't think he would be since he doesn't have regeneration, but we get a really nice surround. You can see my Free Company Militia definitely giving me that really good utility. But the Grey Seer is heavily armored with 100 armor, but with this huge kind of horde of Crusaders coming down the hill, the Greatswords coming in with their Greatswords, and the powder weapons just blasting that Grey Seer. And the Knights of the Blazing Sun, even though they don't have the best AP, 44 weapon strength is still 44 weapon strength. So they're going to be able to surround this guy and drag him down fairly easily. You can see Volkmar the Grim is just going to be running over these Skaven. He cares not for that Warp Lightning. With Sigmar's Fury, he raises his hammer and just ignores it. Just riding down these rats as they flee, which is so great. And he's got to be one of the more entertaining units in the game when you have Volkmar atop his chariot. So on the high ground, I have kind of secured my back line. You can see my Knights of the Blazing Sun have surrounded the Doom Wheel, and the Doom Wheel actually did quite a bit of damage to them, but they should be able to finish this bad boy off, as it only has 16 leadership. You can see the other Imperial forces, these Free Company Militia, just shooting down the hill and advancing, and it's really cool actually when like an enemy's charging and you put them in guard mode. Sometimes when they're in melee, they'll continue to shoot while they're in melee, which looks really cool. The Bright Wizard over here with his Burning Skull, and I actually really like that ability against Skaven. I think one of the matchups in which I would actually like lower fire would be this one, especially if you bring Knights of the Blazing Sun, because you can get that 22 bonus to damage. So Volkmar over here is going to be riding through these artillery pieces. He's having a little bit of trouble, but you can see the Grand Soulfire is going to be bombing on those guys, and they're shaken. He does cause fear and terror, so definitely going to be very good against this Skaven, who do have some substantial leadership issues. The Grey Seer, in the meantime, is trying to escape, but these Knights of the Blazing Sun, as well as this Warrior Priest, are going to be dragging him down. You can see another Burning Skull going off here. I didn't really have too many targets, and I knew that the game was over considering the bounce power, so I figured I would just use it anyways. But the Free Company Militia holding their own in melee against these Gutter Runners, who actually are pretty good. They have 26 melee attack, 28 melee defense, and 28 weapon strength, but more importantly, they do apply poison. And man, look at the karate kicks these Free Company Militia are throwing down. They're just shooting their pistols in melee, which is so cool looking. And it looks like most of the Skaven forces are indeed going to shatter at that point. So let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown, guys. So I don't know what... Oh, these ones were the ones chasing the Doom Wheel. I was about to say, like, why did they get 0 kills? That's so horrible. But they took care of the Doom Wheel, but these ones really wreaked havoc. I think one of the big turning points in the battle was when the Burning Skull roasted his front line of Plague Monks, and then on top of that, the Knights of the Blazing Sun with their Bright Wizard, or excuse me, the Warrior Priest came in the front line. He just rear charged them. That whole like cataclysmic moment with the Burning Skull and then the rear charge just absolutely shattered that Skaven front line. And then from there, I was able to really push through and do pretty well. But in retrospect, I mean, flagellants are okay, but I don't know. I feel like they just get cut up pretty bad in the Skaven matchup, and you're probably going to be seeing a lot of Plague Monks who do have that really good physical resist. So I feel like they're going to trade pretty inefficiently with Plague Monks. I mean, although they do hold the front line and they don't break, which is really, really nice because it allows your powder units in the secondary line to be a little bit more free. So I think like, if I were playing, a really competitive build in a tournament, maybe like 2 great swords, 3 flagellants, some free company militia to kind of support on the flanks and help out in melee if need be. Knights of the Blazing Sun are pretty good. I think Demogryph Knights would also be quite good in this matchup, but again, if you're on a very open field map, you probably don't want to bring Demogryph Knights because the Warp Lightning Cannons, if you had like 2 of those on, let's say, Iron Sand Desert, my Demogryph Knights would have been melted, whereas these 2 were really good, especially with the synergy from the Bright Wizard. The 22% is nice. I do like that change. It's much more interactive. The old Kindle Flame was kind of just like, just a little bit static. There wasn't too much like player interaction with it, and it's a little bit boring, but I really like this because it allows for some, heavy timings. Like right when the Burning Skull was being cast, I was kind of timing my rear charge there, and I was able to get in there and just get a massive spike of extra damage from the Burning Skull and from the Kindle Flame proc, which was pretty cool. The Bright Wizard, or the Warrior Priest, he's more of a thematic pick. I actually don't like him too much, but I think what would have been best is use him in the front line. So you put him with the Great Swords and with these guys, so then when I cast fire spells, they get a 22% bonus to their damage. And, Volkmar, despite the thematics of the Crusade, I actually think he's a really good pick. Like, he's Fear and Terry as regeneration, provides a multitude of nice buffs in the infantry fight. I think he's a really solid pick against the Skaven, even in a competitive sense. So, for my opponent's army, I do like the Clan Rat Spears. I definitely like the Plague Monks quite a bit. I think, a couple Plague Monks, the Gutter Runners with Poison provide some pretty good skirmishing. I do like Rat Ogres here, because Rat Ogres can beat down Greatswords pretty well, and they're also going to trade somewhat efficiently with the Knights of the Blazing Sun. So, for example, if you have some Clan Rat Spears on your flanks, you kind of just, screen the Knights of the Blazing Sun, and then you use the Rat Ogres to kind of engage with the Clan Rats. That's going to give you anti-large armor piercing, and the Rat Ogres aren't going to be taking the brunt of the damage. But I really like the Grey Seer pick for sure. Like, had I brought like a Karl Franz or a Boris Todbringer with the Warpstorm Scroll and the Howling Warp Gale, I would have been in some serious trouble with these Slingers and the Warp Lightning Cannons kind of poking me down. That could have been really ugly. So definitely like my opponent's build. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this this crusade into the Ratman army. It was definitely quite a bit of fun. And guys, I got a lot more content coming soon.